Guys, I have to be honest, I'm a little bit scared because we just announced basically, or like we put the store page live for what may be one of the biggest risks ByteMe has taken since we started game development. Since I think definitely the last 2 years, it's a large scoped game. Maybe some of you have seen me like talk about it. We like briefly mentioned it sometimes. We just announced Desktop Island. Desktop Island is it's a full screen, but you'll also see in a second. It's a long-term idler. As you can see, there's like a little floating window, or you can play at bottom of the screen. Okay, nothing new. This has multiplayer support. It's kind of like Stardew Valley co-op if it was a desktop idler. That's kind of like my main pitch for this. And as you can see, it's a pixel art game. And for the people who have been with us since the days of Songs of Nevermade, I'm still somewhat traumatized from like pixel art games and their marketability. And this game has had a very rough development. It's been 9 months in development, something like that right now. And we'll talk about how long it was supposed to take in a second, but we got it out there. I think I made a video also 2 weeks ago where I talked about Silicon Architect and how that game was kind of needed for me to get out of this kind of rut that I was in. Silicon Architect actually, just to give you a quick update, has been doing better than expected. I think I mentioned my goal was to get 500 wishlists in the first 2 weeks. We're now at 625, so I'm happy with that. For not having anything playable and the marketing not having gone super great, with like a few pieces of press and things like that, but like nothing crazy going on. Like our trailer didn't get like 200,000 views. I'm still happy with this number, okay? And that kind of reinvigorated my life force to work on Desktop Island because the game was done enough for a while in the point of at some point you need to put it out there. That's kind of the problem where I think you may even be able to see of like where I'm not really fully happy with like some of the UI. Okay, this actually is a pretty okay one. Like these colors are like, is this perfect? Some of the game is like not perfect, but at some point you need to get it out there. And I was finally like, okay, we need to get this out there. I ended up making the trailer finally yesterday, and then today was just doing stuff like, for example, redoing the Steam page. So we now have like these cute GIFs and things like that, custom border, looping transitions, all of those things. And we put it live. I just sent out like the press releases. I put the trailer out there on the YouTube, and I've done all of the things. And I just want to talk about this because what went wrong? I think that is the big thing. What went wrong that caused a game that was, supposed to be a quick development cycle to get 9 months into development? And also, why are we taking such a big risk? Because that's kind of something that me and Thomas is the main developer behind this game, have been joking almost about of like, this game either is going to bankrupt ByteMe or it's going to make us like the $1 million game. That's kind of how we see it of like, either this is a game that turns out isn't good enough and is going to get 200 wish lists and we're going to have to cancel it or something like that. Or it's the game that's going to make 100,000 wish lists because of the two factors. One being, well, I'll dive into it in a second. Two factors why we think this game is going to perform well. What I actually want to show you is how this game got made to creation. I think that's kind of an interesting one. I actually made a pitch deck back in end of November last year because I came up with the game idea and then Thomas kind of took it and he spearheaded the rest of development. But I kind of want to give you a little bit of an idea of how we pitch games at ByteMe. I'm going to be honest, this is not how we do every game, but it is okay. The font, normally, some of the fonts are going to be fucked because I don't have the original font anymore that I used in this presentation because I reset my Windows. So the game originally was called Desktop Village. We changed it to Desktop Island Idle Together with a subtitle to really make it clear of one, it's a desktop game, and then two, it's an idler game, and then it's a multiplayer game. Like we really wanted to optimize the title so that from the title you have a good idea of what the game is. Because also, as you notice from these screenshots, a lot of the screenshots are actually full screen because it just looks a lot better than the like bottom of the screen ones. And you can actually play the game in full screen active mode as well. Okay, so Desktop Island is a co-op desktop idler when you and your friends have distinct professions, gather resources and upgrade the village and spend time together. So these were kind of the three main pillars of the game. I think that's the thing. You have like hook, pillar, and USP, and these are the pillars. And I think the most important one that we want to keep playing on is like spending time together, almost like a virtual co-working game is how we looked at it. So yeah, here, think of it as Stardew Valley Co-op as a desktop idler, 1 to 6 player co-op, and original release date was planned for March 2026. We're almost middle of August now. We're early August, okay? Visuals, like I said, okay, bottom of the screen idler. Originally, we only had this, but then we realized, oh, there's actually some issues with that marketing-wise. Gameplay, the three main things of like gathering, expanding, interacting, you know, this is fine. Scope, I think this was like, oh, this is everything we're gonna do. Multiplayer, like, what's the bonus? Basically, everything that's bonus, such as seasons, day-night cycle, different camera modes, has all been scope creeped and is implemented already now. Maybe we'll talk about why that is. I want to talk about this. I think this is one thing where this is a game that whilst it's a big scope game, this made us feel more confident. Like I said, this is internal. Don't ask me what Chris Sikowski is doing here. I mean, I put him here. This is a game that whilst might seem risky, algorithmically, it has a lot going for it. Three main things. First of all, it's a CCU monster. That's how I call it, where, you know, CCU stands for concurrent users. A lot of the Steam algorithm, for example, things like the trending free section on the Steam page, are based around this statistic. How many players are live right now? And then the Steam algorithm uses this in general. And you see this also in, for example, Steam Next Fest. It's one of the reasons why a lot of the idler games and desktop idler games perform so well as multiplayer games, is because they kind of, not intentionally perhaps, but like they boost the concurrent player count. Because an idler game, a desktop idler game, you're gonna have running for like, let's say, an entire day or like 16 hours a day, 8 hours in a day. Whereas a regular game, you would only play for like 30 minutes or something, and then you go to the next one. And because of that, there's a much higher overlap of people who are playing at the same time, and these games get higher concurrent users. Add on to that, not just the idle aspect, but the multiplayer aspect as well, where we're hoping for that network effect of you play the game, and then you're gonna tell your 3 other friends to also play the game, once again multiplies that CCU value. So yeah, dominating the trending free, Next Fest, and new and trending charts. I don't think new and trending really matters anymore, but still there. Easy to iterate. Kinda yes, kinda no. A working base version can be made in 1 week. Believe it or not, we actually did make a working base version in 1 week. We can dogfood it throughout development. Dogfooding means that we have the game running ourselves and then just play it basically throughout development and then push updates. This didn't go as well as we expected, but the base version was there. And then the meaningful distinction was there are a lot of desktop idlers, and I honestly wouldn't suggest you to make a single-player desktop idler in the year 2026 anymore. There is just not much with multiplayer support. The genre is still pretty young in general, and we were like, okay, we can meaningfully improve here. I think the only other one is this one, On Together Virtual Co-working, but this is very much more on the hangout aspect and less of the game aspect, if that makes sense. And this game, this didn't come out when we first pitched this. I think this wasn't even announced. Oh yeah, it was probably announced because it came out 20th of January. But this was kind of the only game that we had similarly. But as you can see, this is very much more of like you and your friends all start the game up when the computer starts, and you can see like, oh, William is also live right now. And that was kind of an idea that we had as well, that we came to by ourselves. I only found out about On Together later. And it seems like with On Together that there is still definitely a potential in it. And of course, Chris Sikowski, I think it's been almost a year at this point since he wrote his like Great Conjunction article, also was a fan of this genre. Risks, marketing, multiplayer, art. We are using one very, very big, very good art asset pack. None of the art basically is custom, which is good, which is bad. The art has me a little bit scared. I think it's just we haven't had enough external feedback. Like some people say like, oh, it's awesome. I haven't heard anyone say that it's terrible, but I think I'm genuinely traumatized from Songs of Everjade's response. And then here, marketing, whilst Next Fest and demos are solid approaches, traditional YouTube coverage may not work as well because desktop idlers and idlers in general, they take a long time to play, so making videos about them is just not something that content creators do as much compared to the short form incremental games, you know, the ones that take like 1 hour to 4 hours, you know. You can easily make a YouTube video out of this, whereas this is a game where we're counting total playtime in weeks, most likely. That's harder as a content creator, and especially the desktop ones, but you're only showing like part of the screen. So we were like, okay, we're just going to have to make short form content as an alternative approach to probably find our audience there. Multiplayer, mechanical complexity, that's stuff like, for example, network syncing. We run into problems nowadays, but it's okay. And then yeah, art. Pacing, we never got to that problem. I think the funny one, this was the timeline. I saw this in there. So the 28th of November last year was when I made this initial pitch to Thomas and William. And then a week later, we had to determine, is this a go or a no-go? And maybe I want to talk about this. What is the go/no-go determination? We're doing some cool stuff with the Steam Workshop. I don't know if I have an easy way to show this. These are the save files for Desktop Village. One of the problems that we had with Stardew Valley, and that was like one of the things of like, this game needs to solve this problem with Stardew Valley co-op or we will not develop it. Maybe you've played Stardew Valley in a co-op. I've done so. And one of the big problems is that a Stardew Valley co-op game is tied to the host. So for example, me and 3 friends are playing Stardew Valley co-op because it's an awesome idea. And friend number 1 is the one who actually hosted the first initial co-op game, and then we all joined him. The problem is that if he's not online, we cannot join him, but he can play, of course, without us joining. And that gives the problem of like, oh, but the next day maybe I have time, but he doesn't. I can no longer play on his world. And that was something that if we want to have the idler aspect and we want to actually make sure people play this game together, we needed to solve that. And we found a, I can say, ingenious approach where every save file is actually a Steam Workshop mod entry. So you can see like BVR A, B, C, D. There's like some development stuff here. Even though I may start a world and then another player and one of my friends joins and then I leave, the server, like the world keeps existing. So there's like host migration if like 2 people are active. This is like maybe a separate video on its own at some point where Thomas can dive in deeper. So me and a friend are playing, I leave, the friend gets transferred like the multiplayer host role, other people can join him. And then if he goes offline, and then I come back the next day, for example, the moment he goes offline, his changes are actually pushed to my Steam Workshop, the one who owns the like save file basically. And then when I start the game, I will then pull in the local changes basically that he's made for my save file. It's kind of like, you know, everything is stored in the cloud. And this was kind of one of the things that we're like, okay, we're doing something genuinely cool and new with the genre, and we believe that this is a bet that's going to pay off. Of course, we never validated that bet. And that is maybe, to go back to here, where did it go wrong? Steam Page Live was scheduled 9 months ago, like I said. We were going to originally join the Next Fest late February and then release in March. And then, okay, I got distracted with MO98 and we're like, okay, we're going to participate in the June Next Fest. We didn't participate either. Now, finally, we are most likely going to participate in the October Next Fest. Actually, I don't think I mentioned this, but right now we do have a playtest as well. You can play this game and give us feedback if you want as well. It's too rough for a demo. We just need to get the feedback and validation because this is the first time we're showing this game externally, basically. And where did it go wrong? Okay, so it went wrong a few ways. First off, the company was running out of money. I think that was problem number 1, where financially, if you need to keep in mind, like the January, February 2026 months were one of the worst performing months for ByteMe in the history of ByteMe, the company. All of our previous games, like Unicycle, Pizza Time, Kyoto Anomaly, and all of that, they kind of flatlined in terms of revenue, and we were pulling in, I would say, about 600 euros a month at most in Steam revenue. Not enough if you want to do this full time. Like we had Patreon, which was like about 1,000, and then YouTube AdSense was about 300, but YouTube was also going down actually back then. So that's what I was like, okay, Desktop Island, we were realizing this needs to be a bigger scope project, but we do not have the financial resources to make this a bigger scope project right now. So that's when I hopped on over to MO98 together with William, and Thomas kept working on his own on Desktop Island because he really liked the game concept and he was like, I'm going to keep working on this. Luckily now MO98 was a massive success. As you can see here, like if we look at the last like 3 months, this is already post-launch. We still have another 27K. If we look like year to date, I think that's maybe a better one. We're looking at $100,000 already in total revenue. So this allowed us to not cancel Desktop Island. The fact that MO98 did well was kind of the thing that also gave Thomas permission to keep working on the bigger scoped game and actually make it a big scoped game. Because that's what we realized. If we made this game in less time, it would not be deep enough as an actual idler. That's the problem. You know, people are like, oh, why is everyone making small scoped incremental games? It's because those are just a lot quicker to make and easier to balance than a game that you're going to play for weeks on it. It needs more time, it needs more attention, it needs more content and all of those things. And now we can do that. Now we can make the bigger scope game, but otherwise this wouldn't have been possible. So that's why we were also like, okay, let's stop putting like as much pressure on of like this game needs to come out right now and let's make the announcement as good as we can. Then we got into the problem where we had no clear definition of what done looks like. And I think this is something I've mentioned in videos before. This is what I mean with you're just like me for real. We didn't know what done looked like. It was just like, oh, when the game looks good enough. And for me, the game didn't look good enough for a long time. And then I was kind of like scared of getting like feedback, because that's another thing I talk about, like a big problem. You know, these videos, I'm talking about my own experience at the end of the day. The longer you work on a game, the more scared you're going to be from feedback. Maybe you guys are going to say that this game is ass. And, you know, maybe it is. But it's going to hurt a lot more to me now if this is a game that has 9 months of development already riding upon it, compared to something like Silicon Architect, which was a month of development, basically. Like Silicon Architect, I'm like, you know, fuck it. If I cancel it, I cancel it. But Desktop Island is another game. We put a lot of effort into it. We put a lot of like time into it. Ideally, we don't want to cancel this. But we were also too scared of like, this game is too rough to really playtest it. There were like some issues with multiplayer. The balancing wasn't there, the localization, like the strings weren't there. There was like so much placeholder text and all of that. And we were like, oh, it needs to be better. It needs to be better. And we had no real definition of what's done. And then I got also distracted by other shiny objects. And that's maybe a downside of the bite me model of working on multiple games at the same time. Thomas is the main developer. I'm the marketing guy, but I'm also the marketing guy, not just for Desktop Island, but also for Silicon Architect, for M198, and then for maybe Net Profits. That game is up in the air right now. And all of those things are also vying for my attention. And I think for this game, I was definitely disappointing Thomas and myself by not giving it more attention. Like some of these things, like for example, the UI, I wasn't happy with, but I also didn't have the time to really go in and fix this UI myself. So if you like really like, not like pixel peep even, but like, you know, things like this UI, it's kind of weird. I know that. I just haven't had the time to go through it myself. So that's kind of the thing of like, this game still gets a lot of iterations from us now, but we just needed to get some first feedback to know how this game is going to do. We actually also, but it's nothing really came in yet. We made like a post as well for like getting some feedback. We're gonna see how it goes, basically. That's the one promise you always get from me. I think this is a good point to end the video. Sometimes we get things like, oh, these game dev YouTubers, they're just too busy talking about making games and they're not actually making games. And hey, we're still making games. I'm going to keep making games until the day I die, even if we hit the $1 million or the $10 million studio, because I do like it. I do like making games, but they do also take a lot of time and effort and stuff like that. I mean, you guys know this probably. I think maybe also some other thing. I think part of the fear as well that I had, especially with Desktop Island and also with like the trail, for example, is like there's this like weird balance, you know, of I give a lot of feedback to like viewer games through things like our Discord or our live streams and whatever. So I also have to make a good game. I have to make a good trailer, because if the trailer isn't good enough, then what is the point in me giving, like, it's not like, what's the point? I still know what makes a good trailer, yes or no. And sometimes it's just the material you're working with that's the problem. But like, you know, it's very easy to then come at me and be like, oh, if you keep like shitting on other people's games, then why don't you make good games? And all of those things. And I get that. And I want to make good games. That's my whole thing as well. And I think this game just wasn't a good game a few months ago. I think Thomas has worked really hard on this game. And I hope it pans out. So yeah, if you want to go, there's a link down below. Go and give the playtest a go. There's some stuff definitely that's broken, but we just need your feedback. So that's all I have to say. We upload 2 videos here every week talking about all the things that we're learning. Probably I'll make a video soon about Silicon Architect and like some of the marketing things we did there, or like how to launch or like announce your game or whatever. But otherwise, I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye.